Welcome back. We're live with Casual Athlete. We're going to be going through round 2 team lists, NRL Fantasy pickups, and your Supercoach draft secret gems that could win you your league. So let's jump right in. Look, we've got Biz, we've got Bergs right here. I want to ask you both, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Who was your top performer for week 1?
Dolphins, surely.
Go the Fins.
Yeah.
You didn't believe me. I actually said...
Yeah,
I was going to say, I was saying before the game, boys, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins got up and neither of you wanted a bar of it.
Yeah, look, we heavily doubted the Dolphins. Yeah. It's a bit sad.
How about you, Miles?
But,
who's your favourite?
Yeah, look, for me, it was the Manly Sea Eagles. Showed a lot of class out there against a pretty strong dog side. And, you know, a hat-trick for DCE, the first in his career. Got to celebrate that.
Yeah, that was a big game for him and Manly. They looked really crispy. I'm going to go to the Brisbane Broncos then, just because they knocked over the Premiers. They were in Penrith, and they looked very classy. The other thing was, down the stretch, their defence was questionable, so they showed a lot of control that they weren't showing last year. Let's jump right into team lists here first. And look, guys, just add your thoughts as we go, but I'm going to look at these team lists, and, you know, you're missing Tola, and you missed him last week, and it saw a few guys like David Moale and Shaq Mitchell get a lot of minutes. Biz, I'm going to go to you. Do you think those guys are going to get the same minutes again this week with a full rotation?
Yeah, I think they might have to. I mean, I just look at the Souths team. There's a lot of missing blokes still. You'll see Arrow is out this week. Host is still out. Havili is out. Hame Saleh's not in the team. Cheekam hasn't really had too many 80-minute games. And to be honest, you talk about Moale and Shaq Mitchell. I actually thought Shaq Mitchell was really impressive last week. Had a good motor. Looked like he was going to bust the line quite a few times. Different test against the Panthers, who will really look to step up after a bit of an upset last week. I think they'll play angry. And it's a much bigger test for them this week.
Yeah, massive game, and at Penrith as well, so they'll be fired up. I still reckon Souths are the team to tip here, though. I mean, if Latrell Mitchell plays this game, I'm probably going to have money on them as outsiders. Miles, do you think Souths will take this one, or are you back in Penrith?
Yeah, look, it's tough to go past Souths. I think they kind of took a while to get going against the Sharks, but yeah, I kind of agree with Biz. I don't see Penrith losing 2 in a row at home to start the year. It's got to come from somewhere, right? And you got to back the form team of the last 3 years. So, and this is always a good grudge match. You know, I expect this game to be pretty close, but I'm going with Penrith.
It always is close. I'm looking too at Sonny Luke on the bench. There's a lot of talk about him getting more minutes, potentially getting the starting spot, potentially playing 80. I think he's in the right spot on the bench. What I would say, though, is they need to bring him on earlier, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
definitely.
he made a big impact off the bench last week. I think Kenny is solid through the middle, but they can use up Luke's, maybe push him from the 20-25 minute mark up to the 40-minute mark and test him out. I think, as you said, Penrith not just losing two in a row at home, but if you go back to the St. Helens game, 3 poor results at home to start the year might be concerning. But yes, they'll need some spark, and Sonny Luke's the bloke who can provide that.
Yeah, hopefully he can give them more than 12 points. You know, it seems to be a recurring theme over the last few weeks, and they've got a pretty relatively unchanged team apart from Scott Sorensen being out with a concussion. But yeah, Eisenhuth comes in there, and I just see Penrith bouncing back. You've got to think that they will. You know, I think everyone will be tipping Penrith, but I won't be surprised if this goes the other way.
The other guy I'm looking at here too for fantasy is Luke Garner. And I was one of the flops who started Luke Garner this week in a couple of drafts and my main team as well. He got taken out for Jamin Salmon, who got a blasting after the game, so maybe that's a good sign. I'm a bit worried about him keeping his 80 minutes because he's only really valuable if he gets 70 plus minutes, so big concern. Does anything else shout out at you guys about these team lists before we move to the next one?
Nah, Brian To'o, I think, had a bit of a quiet game last week as well, and I think the Rabbitohs will be looking to keep him a bit quiet. Dylan Edwards was still pretty good for Penrith. He made strong carries from the back as well. But yeah, I don't know how this Penrith side, their forwards were pretty quiet last week, and they got kept quiet by a very strong young Broncos pack. So, I mean, with the Rabbitohs having a few key outs, that could work in this forward pack's favour for the Penrith.
Yeah, it
I
could be
think
a
there's
big
a
one.
couple of, I was just going to say, Longy, just on that, there's a couple of fantasy implications in this game. If you're not convinced on him, they've got the bye next week. Better to dump him now. I think on the Rabbit side, interesting to see Isaac Thompson's kept his spot over Tane Milne at this stage. I know a lot of people were hesitant on Thompson for that reason. It looks to kept his spot. Big Lockie earliest last week with a 70-plus point score in fantasy. I will say to everyone who's looking to get him in, it smells like an early trap. He had a career game. He doesn't really have the base or the explosiveness to score 70 points on a standard week. There's probably going to be some, average upside here, but I wouldn't be rushing to get him in my team.
Unless this is the career breakout year for him, right? Which we have seen happen for different guys. Like, I'm not tipping it either, but Cody Walker does facilitate a 7 scoring well in fantasy. So it could work that way. Let's jump to the next game here. And look, we've got a few people in the live now too. So drop in the comments who you are tipping to be a big upset for this week, as well as who your favorite team from last week was. And we'll make sure to show those up here. Look, Parramatta Eels versus Cronulla Sharks. First thing here, no Nico Hines. Monstrous loss for Cronulla again. It's going to be tough to go to Parramatta and beat that team after, I guess, a really strong defensive performance last week.
Yeah, no Wade Graham as well, and that's one of their key leaders off the bench. He tried to spark a little bit of intensity last week, and unfortunately, put on a bit of a high shot and took it to the judiciary. It's tough when you see that kind of thing happen, but he's replaced by Connor Tracy, who, as we know, in either fantasy or Supercoach, can pick up some really good points if he's starting. So it could be some upside there, but for Para, they're unchanged from last week as well, which I find interesting. Apart from Sean Russell coming in over there over Lumi, which I think is the right decision. I know you guys are Para fans, you tell me.
Yeah, I think Lumi looks pretty strong last week at times, but he made a couple of crucial errors when it mattered. And Sean Russell played 40 minutes last year to start the season, scored a hat-trick, got injured, didn't make the team again. I think he's a strong addition. I think the one thing I'd be looking to see this week is the bench rotation. A lot of criticism on Brad Arthur for not using Makatoa last week. First game up against a strong Storm team. 0 minutes for a reasonably veteran forward, especially when your middles like Hopgood and Hodgson are playing 80-plus minutes for the first time in a long time. Very questionable strategy. I think they'll probably keep it the same way this week, and I think it'll be a close game, but I'll have the Eels getting up on this one.
I'm on Parramatta 13+ here, and I just reckon Cronulla played the best game they could play without Nico Hines. Braden Trindle was the best player on the field for Cronulla. I don't think he can back that up. I don't think anyone in their spine is going to step up to that extent this week, and I think Cronulla are a bit low on confidence after that last game, and Parramatta will be turning up.
Can I just say
Fellas,
go on, Ross.
Fellas, I'm tipping the upset here. Up the Sharkies. I think the Sharkies get revenge here after last week. They still played pretty well even without Nico Hines, and I'm going to go with a prediction that I made pretty recently that Para will start the season 0-5. They won't win a game for the first 5 rounds. It's a tough draw for Parramatta, and the Sharks are a bogey team for them.
Yeah, last year in round 2, I think Para went down by 2 points, and Nico goal on the 80th minute after Teague Wilton scored a try in the 78th minute. I think, 13+ might be difficult. I think it'll be a close game, but I just look at the Sharks' spine. Kennedy, Moylan, Trindle, and Brayley. That has to be the most boring spine in the NRL. Not a single person excites me there. I actually don't know how they did so well last year. Honestly, on the back of a career season from Hines, because the rest of them, they're not exciting in one bit.
Yeah, look, the comments agree with you. Eels on the bounce back. They're kind of covering miles there in the bottom, but Yeah, look, I think Parramatta get this done. Look, Parramatta at home too. They were pretty good against the Storm. Sort of failed to convert some of those opportunities, but we won't see Moses and Brown play such a contained game 2 games in a row. And I think Hodgson as well. He threatened a lot, but another week to sort of build those combinations, and he'll really be there. In terms of
you're falling into the trap again. You're falling into the trap again. You know, thinking that
time
Parra
to
will
say
get
it,
the job
Liz?
done.
Are we gonna say it? Is it that 3 words or 4 words? Go on, say it with me.
Absolutely.
This
I'm not
is
saying. I'm not saying it.
our
I'm not
year.
saying it. I'll say it after. I'll say it after this week when we win by 40 points.
By 40 now. We'll stick to
Yeah,
13.
I changed
plus.
my mind.
Next up, Brisbane
after I
Broncos.
talked about that spine. Oh yeah, it's gonna be
You're
40
feeling good.
plus. Yeah, I'm feeling good.
Next up, we're running the Brisbane Broncos up against Miles Bergen's Cowboys. Look, the Broncos put on a big show last week against Penrith, so I'm feeling like they're going to come into this one pretty confident and at home.
Yeah, huge matchup always. The big brother versus little brother matchup. It's a game that I don't miss every single year, this first matchup of the year. We've gotten the better of them in recent times, and hoping we can continue that this week. We're unchanged, which I'm not surprised about. Started off strong against the Raiders as well, so if we can continue that first half performance, or that first 35 minutes before Emery Gula scored for a full 80 minutes, then I think we're going to be pretty unstoppable. It's all about whether Brisbane can back this up. You know, huge emotion up against Penrith. You know, a young forward pack doing pretty well. How do they go against the Cowboys, fellas? Thoughts?
Beers, I'm going to put you on the spot. Give us your tip for this one.
I reckon Cowboys will get up by a
is
field
lightning.
goal. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
I think this will be a pretty defensive game. There's a lot of attacking talent in both teams, but they played with such, I guess, strong attitudes and intent last week that I can see this being another grind style of game, sort of like the Eels in the Storm last week. Reece Walsh is a massive addition for the Broncos. As good as Cobbo is at the back, he is quite error prone. Walshy has a lot of attacking talent, and he'll bring some creativity to the back, whereas Cobbo is more of a strong runner, or Walshy is more of a ball player.
Class.
A close game here. I think a field goal will decide it again.
See, I worry about the Cowboys. I watched that first half, and the Cowboys were on fire, and they looked like every part of the team that was going to challenge for the minor premiership. But they let some soft tries in through the middle, and Tom Starling just absolutely carved them up. And look, we're not saying that Brisbane have that hooker that's as explosive as Starling, but guys like Payne Haas, he had a game last week. He had 200 plus meters, 7 tackle breaks. He was doing a bit of ball play. Carrigan's a monster. They've got Flegler on the bench.
Look, exactly. That's the thing. That's the thing right there, right? I'm not worried about Kurt Capewell or Jordan Ricky hurting us. Whereas we have Robson, Cotter, Nanai, Tamalolo. These guys can hurt you in a big way, and I think we've got the edge in the forward pack. I do think that Broncos outside backs are stronger. Herbie Farmworth had a great game last week as well. It's going to come down to whether Reece Walsh gels immediately. If he's going to take a couple of weeks, then I think we get it done. But if Biz is back in the back-to-back 1-point victories for the Cowboys, I'll happily jump on that train.
Okay, big calls. Any fantasy implications for this one, Biz? Anyone you're looking at or thinking about?
I think, straight away, if you're looking at stability in your team, Payne Haas, Patrick Carrigan, 60 plus last week. No reason why both of them can't average 60 this year. In terms of the Cowboys, Robson had a great start. He was underpriced. I think, he generally, when he plays 80 minutes, scores around the 60 mark, and he was priced in the low 50s. I think, people were questioning whether he'll play 80 in that Townsville heat at the start of the season with Granville on the bench. He played 80. He was one of their best. He's going to be up for a great season again. They're the main players. I think the rest are probably mid-ranges or, maybe a little bit of upside, but they're the big three. Actually, the other one is Ruben Cotter with another 60-point performance. Obviously had a great middle of last year. playing big minutes, did his hamstring and had to reduce minutes towards the back end. Good to see him playing big minutes. He'll be someone to try and get into a team's ASAP, because if he gets a 70-minute role, he's scoring 60 plus.
Yeah, he's a beast. He's a beast. Well, let's move to the next game here. We've got the Chooks and the Warriors, and I want to play a bit of a game with this one here. I want each of you to take a team, and I want you to debate who you think is going to win this, and I'll let you guys choose which teams you want to take.
I want to take the Warriors.
I'll go Warriors. You want the Warriors?
No, I said it first. I want the Warriors. I've always
Warriors.
been a closet Warriors fan.
Why do they get it done then?
Okay, well, first of all, I think Warriors look strong in preseason and this week. I think they've made a lot of good recruits. Some of the players that stepped up last week, Jackson Ford was excellent again after a strong preseason. Tohu, another season back from his ACL, looked really strong. Murata did things we saw at the Eels when he got opportunities. And they got it done. And surprisingly, the one thing I noticed was Josh Curran played less than 20 minutes. He must be a poor trainer. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because Josh Curran, to the casual fan, to the casual athlete, he always is a very strong performer, but his minutes are on the decline. I'm not sure why. I think Roosters were poor. I think they're overrated. They've got a lot of injuries. Their pack is decimated already to start the year. I think the Warriors can cause an upset here.
Yeah, Curran, just to cut in on him, he's a monster. He's been talked about as a Blues bolter, and he's always exceptional. So there must be a problem there, because he's a better player than Jackson Ford, even though we saw Jackson Ford turn up big. But I would think that if you're the Warriors coach, you want him playing 60 minutes a game and offloading 3 or 4 times and creating those opportunities he creates. Miles, what are you looking at in this Warriors team that you think you can exploit for the Roosters?
I think you need to exploit the outside backs, and especially the centre pairing. I'm not sure of Braden Williami. I don't think the Knights threw enough at the Warriors, whereas I think the Roosters have got a bit more, in the tank to score more points, and they'll be a bit more threatening. Guys like Joe Suwali and Joseph Manu, big in for the Roosters this week as well. He'll provide a lot of stability on that right edge where they conceded a lot of points last week. So I don't see that happening again. He's not going to get burnt on the outside like a Drew Hutchison. I'm surprised Drew Hutchison maintained his spot in the team. We got Emil who put out a video about that. He was pretty upset that Drew Hutchison was starting there. I just think that the Roosters can't be as bad as they were. I think that might have been the worst Roosters performance I've ever seen. They dropped so much ball, and it was so un-Roosters-like. And, Brandon Smith got hit by Felice Kafusi, got rattled really early, and I think went into his shell a little bit. I don't see that happening again this week. And I think Victor Radley needs to choose his moments to be intense and start thinking, I can't run 100 miles an hour into everything. Otherwise, his body's not going to last. And he's just re-signed until the end of 2027. We want to see him playing for a long period of time. But I think despite this Roosters pack being a little bit depleted, with guys like Crichton, Tupanua, and Warrior Hargraves out, I still think that this Roosters forward pack offers a lot. Lindsay Collins is a very underrated player. Nat Butcher, we've seen over previous years, could have been starting for the Roosters on a weekly basis, and Victor Radley's up there with some of the best locks in the game.
Let me slide in there, Miles, because you're talking about the forward pack, and we look at this Roosters forward pack, and everyone's critiquing them, but let's talk about guys they don't have from last year that would have been there. So basically, a whole starting pack in Takiaho, Matt Lodge, Stili Tupanua, Angus Crichton, Connor Watson. Right, all unavailable, all starting caliber guys. So you see guys like Nat Butcher's a good player, but he's not your primary offensive weapon in the forward pack. Egan Butcher, he's been good off the bench, but to ask him to do the job against Felice Kafusi when he is just roided up, fired up beyond belief. It's pretty challenging to ask those guys to do those jobs. And even Drew Hutchison, he was in starting at centre over Joey Manu. I thought that was a bit weird they didn't start Corey Allen there. But look, the pack is going to struggle a bit, and that's where the Warriors could really dust the Roosters. But I just think Trent Robinson will get them up for this, and they're going to be too classy in terms of converting those opportunities to points. Biz, I want you to go to you for your final tip. We've got a couple of questions coming through. So Cowboys Edit's asking all three of us, who's our final tips? Let's go one line each. Biz, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I'm going Warriors by 6. I think they'll take the momentum from last week. I think Warriors are the type of team that are a confidence team, and when they get on a roll, they can get on a roll quickly, and having an easy start versus the Knights in week 1 could really help them. Warriors by 6 it is.
And Miles?
I'm going to go Roosters 20 plus and Suwali to score a hat-trick.
Huge. I also think the Roosters will put on a bit of a show here. I reckon the Roosters go up 18-0 early in this game, and then discipline slides a bit there, and they win by maybe 8 or 10 points. So, yeah, roll back in that. Question coming through on the TikTok side. Kyle Woolbank has asked, with Sonny Luke potentially getting more minutes, is he a must for fantasy or Supercoach? So, Biz, I'm going to go to you for that one.
Yeah, I think Sonny Luke, I was thinking that you're probably going to get Sonny Luke at the cheapest price now, but last week his score was 40-odd, backed off a try, only 25 minutes. I think you can definitely wait and see this week because the Panthers have the bye next week, so I would hold off. If he gets 30, 40 minutes this week or even more than that, then you cop the price increase, but I don't think you really want him in your side if he's playing that 25-minute role. Because there is some doubt, because last year in games with Kenny and Luke, Kenny played 70, 80 minutes and Luke played 20 because, Luke came on for a stint and Kenny moved to lock, which is what happened last week. So there's no real guarantee he'll get more minutes, even though he played well. So my verdict on Sonny Luke, wait until the bye is resolved.
You first wait until the bye. We've got a few more comments coming through. 2 Point Conversion Podcast, a good friend of the show. He is predicting Dolphins to go 2-0. And we'll get to that one, that Dolphins pick. Ty's come in with a very flattering question. Why are you Mark Nichols? Which I love. I love that comparison. Because you
were Blake Ferguson before and Mark Nichols now.
Yeah, I need to be leaner to be Fergo. He's going, go to Dolphins training and get off TikTok. Next question, while we're here, and I might... Whoa. We talked Para already, so I'm just going to jump back to it quickly because we did get a question on TikTok here. Thoughts on Mitchell Moses and Supercoach? He burnt me this week from Carl. Now, Moses scored, I think it was 14 points in Supercoach this week. My verdict is that I wouldn't be too concerned. When you're talking about price changes in Supercoach, it's a 3-round average, so you only get that first game for 1 week. So it means that it's going to affect your price for that week 3 change, but after that, it's going to slide right out of the averages. So I wouldn't be too worried. I think your concern would be whether Sean Lane, Ryan Madison, Isaiah Papali'i being out is going to hurt Moses and Brown. But if you started with him, you keep him in there. If you're not going to keep him, it's probably because of those changes in the back row or the tough fixtures they've got early on. So, yeah, touch and go for Moses. Do you guys have any thoughts on the para halves in general for Supercoach?
Yeah, I think Moses generally struggles against the Storm, so he's had a couple of good games on them. It's usually Dylan Brown who steps up against Storm. I agree with Longy. Definite hold. His role was still the same as last year. Took all the kicks, dominant playmaker. Good times to come. Hold
Moses. There we go. The next game we got here is the Dolphins, and we've got a bunch of people commenting about the Dolphins being a 2-0 team and a top 8 team. They got a lot of love on TikTok as well. I'm just going to open the floor here. I mean, who were you most impressed by on the Dolphins? I'll start things off with Jeremy Marshall-King. We all knew what Jeremy Marshall-King could do, and we all knew that he was an explosive hooker, and we talked about him as a guy who could be unleashed under Bennett. But he played a game that's, if he could keep playing like that, it was vintage Damien Cook level explosiveness through the middle. So he was my guy. But look, Biz, I'll throw it to you. Who are you most impressed by?
I thought, to be honest, I can't point one. I'll quickly run through a few names that really stood out. Hamiso, work rate was really strong. Love to see it. Felice Kafusi, defense was excellent. Didn't expect that. Great. The one guy I think needs more minutes and was really impressive was Lemuelu. That's
Connolly.
Yeah, I'll let Miles talk about him because I know we kind of talked about in the preseason about Marshall King being a strong input, and Connolly also scored a great try. Miles, what are your thoughts on him?
Mate, I've been watching this kid for a while. Obviously came from the Cowboys, young, schoolboys Australian player as well. And I was so upset that we let him go because in my head, he's better than guys like Lukey and Mitchell Dunn, who we currently have. So to let him go to the Dolphins, yeah, I'm so glad he got minutes in this game. And, he needs more of it. He's listed on the bench again this week, but, with Kenny Bromwich probably not being an 80-minute player, or even Felice at times, getting up there in age, although pulled off some great shots on the weekend, doesn't look like he's skipping a beat at all. It's going to be tough to get any minutes for Connolly, but I was so impressed by him and good to see him do a great job there and hammer it as well. I think just absolutely.
You can make a case that you could run Kenny Bromwich through the middle at parts of the game. He's a pretty explosive guy. He's got a decent ball playing skill set, and he's got an offload in him too. So you could argue you slide him in a bit, maybe Limielo, how's it pronounced? Right, you could drop him into the middle as well. He was just explosive across the board. It's a good problem to have for the Dolphins because even Ewan Aitken is sort of leaning towards the back row spot, and he slid out the center as well. We've got a few comments here as well, a few more Nichols comparisons, and Sarko impressed Kyle here. We've got a question about we'll hold those ones, questions around Dragons and the Dogs, so we are going to get to those soon. Also, guys, drop onto the profile here, and the YouTube stream is in the link there as well, so you can go straight to that. Look, we'll move through here to the Raiders here, because I was a little bit disappointed by the Raiders. I thought they played a bit of ball once the game was kind of over, and the tries they scored were a little soft. They conceded some soft ones against the Cowboys too. They just didn't look like that team that was going to crack the 8 from, I guess, that group that could do it. How do you guys feel about the Raiders? Did it strengthen or weaken your feeling on them?
I just don't think Sebastian Chris should be playing fullback as well. Like he got called out a couple of times, made a couple of errors. I just don't see why they're not putting in Albert Hopewadi potentially, who was a great fullback at the junior levels of the game. He's listed there on the wing this week in instead of Jordan Rapana, and no Papali'i as well. It's tough for me to tip the Raiders this week. They're away from home again in Queensland. It's so tough because I don't think it improved my rating on the Raiders, but it didn't really decrease it either. I just guess I don't have the Raiders that high on my list of teams.
What we could look for there is Josh Papali'i coming back, because it is a good forward pack. And it's a pretty experienced spine as well. Once you get, look, Xavier Savage isn't that experienced, but he's so explosive. They're sneaky, but for me, it was those teams like Brisbane, the Dogs, the Tigers, the Raiders, the Titans, in that conversation for who could slide into the 8. And for me, the Broncos struck the biggest blow, but the Titans also looked very clinical if they could get forward on the side.
And Manly too. Manly rolled over them.
Manly, yes. I'm almost giving too much respect to Manly. Just thinking of them as they're a bit of a short thing, aren't they, right now? Let's go into this next game here. Dogs and Storm. Biz, I want you to give a bit of a fantasy look into Dogs and Storm, because there's quite a few guys you could look at here. Yeah,
for sure. I think if we start from the backs, I thought Hayes, again, about the mid-20s mark. I think he scored 26, Hayes Perham. Look, he just seems like a player who'll score above his break-even, but not make you too much money. He probably needs a game where the Dogs really explode to get his money moving. Probably not going to be against the Storm, but, hold if you have, don't bring him in if you don't. Alamoti was pretty disappointing on debut, but I would definitely hold him. I'm going to play him again this week. He's sitting outside Kickout, who had a pretty miserable game. We all know what Kickout can do. I think it doesn't take much for Alamoti to score a try or get some assists this year, so hold on to him, play him. Don't bring in another haphazard center just to go over the top of him. Burden, really disappointing start to the year. I think less than 20 points. Again, you've brought him in for a reason. hold. I think just generally remember, if you brought guys in for a reason, one game, unless they didn't get the role you expect, I would hold. And Burton got 80 minutes. He looked to dominate the playmaking. Bulldogs will get better. Marnie, really good start with a try last week, 70-plus points, 51 tackles. I think he's a guy you could bring in this week if you had a player underperforming the hooker spot. But again, he's probably going to be a 50-60 average. So no real rush to bring him in because his price is pretty expensive already. The one thing I do want to mention on the bench is Jacob Preston. He actually got 55 minutes off the bench last week, even though he didn't score too many. I would look to see him really improve his scoring this week because at 55 minutes, based on what he scored in reserves, I think he averaged about 52 in reserves. If he brings that across at 55 minutes, he can average 30-plus. So I'd hold him, and I think he'll be playable real soon because I don't think Farmano Brown will hold that lock spot too long. But that's my fantasy take on the Dogs.
Yeah, look, I think it's really... They're struggling for forwards at the moment, aren't they? They brought in a one-game player in Jaden Tanner there on the bench. They've got Ryan Sutton and Max King, who are pretty serviceable players, but for me, they don't make a huge impact or commit a lot of men to one tackle. As you were saying, Kickow had a pretty stinker of a game last week, but up against that Melbourne right edge is going to be very interesting. That Eli Katoa and Remus Smith, they're very new to each other, and Eli Katoa was good last week. Remus Smith was good on coming back from a pectoral tear, but I think the big guys in this game that you should look at for potentially grabbing a few tries that could be cheap this week are Will Warbrick and Xavier Coates. If they can, put some points on the board, the Storm. I know they don't have Munster, and it's going to be tough, but if they're going to put any points on the board, it's going to go through mostly Xavier Coates and Will Warbrick.
See, I worry a bit about the Dogs because they were really bad, and people are talking about the Dogs getting Reid Marnie, who played sensational, and talking about Kickout coming in, he had a really bad game, but he's going to be really on the Kickout. Well, what I worry about for them is the middle forward rotation. So you lose Luke Thompson for the year, you lose Paul Vaughan in the off-season, you lose Josh Jackson as well, you lose Joe Stimson, who wasn't the biggest guy.
TPJ's injured, yeah.
Yeah, and he hasn't been reliable. Like, you're almost looking at this. Look at this middle forward rotation, and you go from having Paul Vaughan, Josh Jackson, Luke Thompson, to Max King being your best middle forward. And he was good last year, but is he an alpha prop in this league? I don't think so. And then Ryan Sutton is in and out of the bench for Canberra. Farmano Brown, we love Farmano Brown, but as a starting lock, do we love Farmano Brown? Not as much. I worry that they're going to get rolled in the forwards, and Reid Marnie's not going to be able to make that impact. And then I'll jump to my other problems with the Bulldogs in a sec. But look, do you think their pack is good enough to compete in this league? And just so you
right
come
now,
out there, the Doggies, Dogs 500 minutes with Storm. So we got one man who says yes.
I don't think the pack is that. I mean, Melbourne's carrying a lot of injuries. I look at it, and Nelson, I'll just do it on a matchup basis. I'd take Naz over Max King, Grant over Marnie, Welsh over Sutton. But I'd take Kickow over Trent Loera. I'd take RFM over Katoa, and probably take Josh King over. Okay, I thought I'd go the other way. I thought I'd pick a lot more Dogs there, but it looks like I'd sweep picking Melbourne.
Just on Josh King, he was outstanding last week, especially
80 minutes, 75 minutes.
Fantasy-wise, absolutely killed it as well. He's a good guy if you're looking for a relatively cheaper lock than some of the other bigger names. Josh King, if he gets those minutes, as you said, played 75 minutes last week. He could kill it all year.
Yeah, my only concern with that is that they still got Eisenhuth to come back, Kamakamita to come back, and Tarek Sims to come back. All might play in the middle rotation, and generally Bellamy plays his second row as big minutes. So, in good news for Katoa and Loera, if they keep their spots, they should continue to play 70, 80 minutes. But, where do Sims and Eisenhuth play when they come back? Have to wait and see. But I'm on the Katoa train. A lot of people have both. they should be pretty solid for fantasy.
I think Katoa
Yeah,
could be
just,
one of the top try-scoring back rowers in the comp this year. And look, it didn't look good last week, but it's a preseason pick I'm sticking with. I think he could score double digits tries this year, especially as the Storm middle forwards start to come back and that role starts to come back. The other thing I'm going to throw in here is we're getting heaps of comments. So Keegan on TikTok, we got Flash Green in the comments here as well. William, loves that we replied. I'm going to throw Flash Green's comment up here. And sorry, Miles, you're a bit covered there. Dogs need to get rid of Flanagan. Can't even rise to the challenge. Burton needs a half who controls the game, giving him airtime to bring to more plays. I'm not as critical of Flanagan, but I do agree he's not the right fit for Burton. And I've been saying for a while now, they just need a guy who can steer the team around, get the forwards running their sort of sets, and take a lot of end of set kicks, especially close to the line. So I've been saying for a while, and look, it's not going to happen now, but Sam Williams, who was at Canberra, or even Matt Frawley, who was at Canberra, basically all the Canberra backup halves who were guys you get for 100k, would have been better fits than Flano.
Like they could have gone out and got Jackson Hastings as well. Yeah, he's a guy who I thought could have fit in really well there, and it probably someone as low as either Sam Williams or Jackson Hastings, and someone as high as Mitchell Moses or Nathan Cleary. Like you need a guy who's going to be able to take that last tackle kick and make it not like a we're in trouble kick. Let's throw it to Matt Burton, who's got a massive left boot, but like it needs to be precise. It needs to be a game plan. Whereas I think Burton just kicks it because it's he's got the biggest boot in the competition. It seems a bit wasteful and a bit senseless. Whereas Flanagan, I don't know.
I feel like Burton has a hit and miss kicking game at times as well. He gets hot, and then some games every ball goes dead. Down full. His long kicking game sometimes gives something to be desired. You can see some comments here. Young Carl to come on. I mean, I don't know too much about him, but it'll be hard to thrust a rookie into the cauldron in Melbourne for his debut.
Mm-hmm. He did have a great game though in reserves. I saw some of the stats, and look, I didn't watch that game, but in the comments there, Will, if you can tell us a bit about this player, then we're happy to hear it. I think that if you've started the season with Flanagan, you've probably run a whole preseason with Flanagan and Burton, so you probably think you have something there. And Hayes, Perham, Reed Marnie, it's a brand new spine, really outside of Flanagan played third of the year last year, but Hayes is new, Reed's new, the forward pack's new, a lot of the back line's new, Carraz isn't the center anymore. Like, I think it's going to take some time with those combos forming, and if you're the Dogs and you've committed to this, you probably have to give it till round 4 before you make those changes.
Yeah, new coach as well is always it's always difficult to get things rolling right from round 1. So I expect them to struggle for 5 or 6 rounds. If they struggle any longer than that, then they're going to miss the 8.
I think they'll probably go 50-50 for the first 6-7 rounds and then start piling up some wins towards the back end. I actually think they can win this game. I'm not saying they're favourites or anything, but it's kind of like the Dolphins last week. I just think that there's a world where the Dogs can pull off the upset. I think they've got a pretty good team on paper. They'll be fired up after last week. Their fans weren't too happy. They're expecting a lot this year. But they might come out hot. If this was in Belmore, I would say Dogs. I'd be reasonably confident. In Melbourne, a bit tricky.
Yeah, the only thing I will say towards that is Hughes' record without Munster is pretty decent compared to Munster's record without Hughes. So I still expect Melbourne, with their class, with the experience of Craig Bellamy. They played a big game last week. That could affect them a little bit, but Harry Grant, they've just got world-class players, and I don't see that on the other side of the field at the moment.
Yeah, I mean,
so Melbourne for me.
So, no Munster. That's the tough part. I think. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if the Dogs had their old forward pack, I'd be tipping the Dogs so fast in this game. But their pack is just... It's a bit in shambles right now. It's all new combinations. I think you have to go the Storm as well. Let's jump to the next game here and go through to the Tigers and the Knights. So, look, this is 2 teams who really suffered in round 1. Tigers got dusted by the Titans. The Titans looked like they were in control that whole game. and the Knights were beaten down by the Warriors, a forward pack of guys who couldn't get starts last year and just absolutely decimated them. Maradi Niokore, Jackson Ford, all these guys destroyed the Warriors. I'm looking at these teams though and thinking both of these teams are really explosive. Both of these teams have number sixes who could be the Dally M on any given season if they went on the right run. They've both got very good hookers. They've both got very quick, outside backs, guys who can score tries, forward packs full of representative players. They should be better. So I'm going to ask you boys, if you had to pick one of these teams, which one do you think is the better shot at making the 8 this year?
Tigers.
Why? I'll go to you, Biz, first.
I think they've got a pretty decent team. I think, again, they're a pretty new team as well, kind of like the Dogs. It'll take them some time to gel. They've got a couple of guys still to come back in, Bateman, etc. I also think that the Titans will have a pretty good side this year. So whilst it was disappointing last week, I saw some signs. I saw Dewey really step up in the second half. I'm a bit worried about this back five. I thought Naden was actually really, really strong.
Naden was good.
Yeah, he was strong, but the other guys not so much. And then just on the Knights, they just defend like a bit weak-hearted almost. Like they have such a good team on paper, but some of these guys that they're just injury-prone. They don't play with a good attitude at times, and I'm just not a fan of Ponga at 6. I just think he's one of, if not the most explosive runner in the game, and you're taking him out of fullback into a 6 role where he's more of a passer than a runner. Like, I'm not really a fan. So, yeah, I just think Tigers will be like the Dogs, strong second half of the year and might push for the 8, whereas Knights will be the bottom half all year.
One thing we'll throw in there though is like Dane Gagai comes back, and look, Gagai is not the epicenter of excellence, but he's a centre who can score a try and set up his outside man. So you go him and Bradman Best. You get Dom Young. You get Greg Marzu potentially. I don't know where he's at, but he was missing games due to a hip pointer injury originally. It's an explosive back line.
Rumors thought that he was going to come back. He was going to come back this week, Greg, but he's had to take another week out.
Yeah, see, that's tough for them because Heimel Hunt he's not a bad player.
Listed in the reserves, could be a late change.
But that's the thing. As individuals, they are really good players. Like, if you look through the 17, they've got some really strong players. They just don't have great chemistry as a team, or something's wrong there because, Lockie Miller's a great player, Hunt's serviceable, Gagai and Best really strong, Dom Young really strong, Ponga Hastings really strong. The Saifidi brothers played Origin, Brayley's really good, Frizzell's really good, Fitzgibbon's a pretty strong runner, Man's solid. Like, they shouldn't be a team that's, always hovering near the last couple of years. So it's not. I don't know if it's coaching or something else, but hard to really put my confidence in them. Want them to succeed though.
Yeah.
I don't like. Yeah, I don't like Kurt Mann at lock either. But I just don't think he's a lock. We've seen him play a number of different positions.
Who are you going to put in? Like Jack Hetherington, maybe? I would probably start Hetherington at lock. Look, they lose Adam Elliott. They can't play him. I think, man, if you're going to play him at lock, bring him off the bench at 30%. Play him like Connor Watson, at least.
Yeah. He needs to be more of a roaming middle forward, and right now they're using him for like a lot of hit-ups, and he's making a lot of tackles. And for a guy like Kurt Mann, who's had a few issues with injuries over the last couple of years, probably not the best position for him. He needs to be in a more limited, more impactful role rather than playing big minutes a game.
Yeah, completely agree. Let's think about this Tigers team too. One thing to add, John Bateman. So John Bateman still isn't in the team. If you're playing in a fantasy draft or Supercoach draft, not Classic, don't get him in Classic yet, but in one of those draft leagues, someone might have drafted him and they might be worried about the fact that he's not in. He's getting acclimatized to the team. I've heard that he's not injured. Is he on the extended bench here?
No, he's not. I heard he's underweight at the moment. I think he's in the low 90 kilos. They're trying to get his weight back up before he plays, which takes time. You can't gain 5 kilos of muscle overnight. So,
not muscle.
And then
you can maybe do the other.
Yeah. Well, I can do the other one pretty easily. So.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's still though he's not necessarily relying on that size. So I think he's going to come in and if you get him in draft, he'll be sneaky down the stretch. So if you can get him cheap on a trade, maybe trade someone who went big this week and you got a bit later on, definitely target John Bateman.
Mate, I'm not saying this to be a bit of a dick, right? But I think that Sean Bloor has rightfully earned his, spot. And just because they've put so much effort into him and he's had such bad luck with injuries, he's kind of like, guys like Billy Smith, who we've seen over the years, heavily hyped, just can't stay on the field. Last week only played 18 minutes as well. I know, had a head injury. It's tough, but I want to see Sean Bloor do well because heard so much about him, heard what he can do, and I want him to show it and get the chance to show it on a regular basis.
I still don't think he competes, though. Isaiah Papali'i, John Bateman. Flash Green mentioned it. John Bateman's the reason why the Tigers are in his top 8. And for me, it's very similar.
Yeah.
I think
we don't know that John Bateman's going to come back as the same player.
Yeah. Well, I agree, but I think, Bloor will play his time, but I just can't see Tigers starting him unless they move Papali'i to the front row. Like, there's a world where Stefano gets benched, Papali'i plays in the middle. I think that's unlikely as well, but I think Bloor will be the kind of 40-minute back row this year. But no, I mean, excellent player. Can he stay on the park? He could be a big difference maker for them.
I think Flash Green needs to also check history as well because, John Bateman dogged him, mate. So
Bateman's in his
contract.
He'll be all right. I don't know why he's coming so underweight. That'd be another conversation to have. He's paying good money for him. But all right, look, we'll go to the next game here. Dragons and Titans. And the Dragons probably would have been looking at this thinking, all right, we're probably going to win first up. But the Titans were very classy against the Tigers. So, I'm looking at this thinking we don't know what Dragons we're going to see in this game. But if we see the regular Dragons team and we see the Titans like they were last week, then it should be a Titans win. Biz, who are you running this game?
I'm going with the Titans. I actually am pretty high on them this year. I think last season was poor. They had flashes the season before. I just think that foreign makes a pretty big difference to them. Like, they've just lacked leadership and someone to control a game when things are going a bit downhill, and they came out of the blocks early. I think they've got a lot more excitement in the team this year. Fafita had a down year last year. It's a contract year for him. I know he's assigned a 2-year extension, which is excellent news. But with Tanner Boyd, Kieran Fora, and Brimson back at his natural spot, and I thought Jaden Campbell was really good off the bench. He looked like he broke the line a couple of times. I think Titans will go close to pushing the 8. I think Dragons, I look at this team, not much really excites me. Toby Couchman on the bench, I've heard pretty good raps about him. I was, after Team List came out, I did some quick research. Seems to be a good upcoming player. If you know more about him, let us know. But yeah, I think Titans will do the same as last week, but come out of the block strong, taper off, but still win by 10 plus.
Yeah, totally agree. Miles, how do you see this one playing out?
For me, I go down the team list and I think who looks really out of place there. And for me, it's Moses Mbai at 9 for the Dragons. It's one of those decisions is where is his best spot to play, and for me, it's left, right, out. I don't think Moses should be playing 1. I don't think his best spot is 6. It's definitely not in the halves. And number 9, he's a bit of a turnstile at times. Doesn't make a lot of tackles. So I'm surprised that Jacob Little isn't starting at 9. I maybe would have had Moses off the bench, which is probably, I think, his spot at this stage in his career. But it's good to see the Dragons for the first time this year and their team shaping up. I like that Jaden Sullivan managed to pass his fitness test, so we get to see him in the 6 role for most of the year. I'm going to assume, as long as he doesn't get injured again. Good young up-and-coming player, and the guy I would have gone with at 6. So that moves Jack Bird to the lock role as well. So I don't mind that move. I think Jack Bird needs to be a rolling middle forward at this point in his career as well. And with the Titans, I'm largely unchanged for this week. I think Kieran Foran being in the team is a surprise to me, considering the knock that he took last week. But not only did we see what he had brought to the team, he basically has unlocked a bit of David Fafita. Gave him some short ball, ran good lines and just said run as hard as you can. And it's good to see that Fafita's locked in on the Gold Coast till the end of 2026.
That Fafita line break from Foran must have really excited the Titans fans, because that's what you want to see. That's exactly what he's there for.
Yeah, that's what Foran is there for. And when Foran went off the field and looked like it was a knee injury, it's been a PCL, been confirmed as that. That was concerning because Foran is so key for the Titans. We've got a lot of comments coming through from TikTok and also the stream here. So a bunch of people, Dragons for the Spoon from Keegan, Dragons for the Spoon from Flash, a couple on TikTok as well. A lot of tips for the Dragons for the Spoon. And look, is it harsh to tip a team that we haven't seen yet for the Wooden Spoon after we saw some pretty average performances from other teams?
One thing I'll always say about giving the spoon to someone so early is it always ends up being the team that you never think it will be. That happened to the Cowboys last year, and I've also tipped the Dragons to get the spoon. It seems to be a pretty popular opinion, but we'll see how it all shapes out, because I don't think that they'll get there now just because everyone's saying it.
Yeah,
and that feels.
I agree. It's never who the favorite is. Like I think most people had Dolphins, and then look at week 1, and then Dragons. Like I don't think they're that bad. I actually think Little is a really underrated hooker. He's probably one of the hookers that scores the most tries. Very attacking hooker. Sloan and Sullivan could have breakout years, and I saw that Amon is now free to play as of today, so he might be part of this season. And forward pack quite boring. I can see them being in a hunt for the spoon, but with Ben Hunt at halfback, you never know. He's a great player.
Tell you what, that's a good point actually, because look, Jaden Sullivan lines up there at 6. They ran Jaden Sullivan at 9 a lot last year as well. So I've always thought that if they had Tyrell Sloan at fullback, Jaden Sullivan at 9, and your halves is Amone and Ben Hunt, that's probably the most explosive spine the Dragons could trot out. And it's not an experienced spine by any means, but it's their best shot. Yeah. And it's a team that on a Sunday afternoon you'd be scared of, because they're all explosive, fast guys. They're all running support lines. They're all fit. They're not tackling much, but
they're not gonna grind out the wins. If the Dragons want to win this year, they're gonna have to win in shootouts, and they've got to go get these young, offensively talented players out there and throwing the ball around and play some exciting footy, which is great for the fans.
And let's throw exciting footy in there too, because getting a few comments around Lomax. Obviously, Keegan in the YouTube there. Let's get that flick pass back out. Also, a couple. Kyle in the TikToks asking, is Lomax a guy you'd look at for fantasy or Supercoach? I think he's a bit undervalued for draft leagues, because he had a year last year where he didn't have a lot of try assists or tries, and he's a guy who's going to create those. But for regular fantasy, if you're getting him now, you're expecting him to be one of the best centers in the game, and I don't think he is that. So I think you'd be bringing him in at about the price he's worth, maybe a bit undervalued, and you'd be trading him out for Joey Mano at some point anyway. So,
well, I think if you're going for a center in fantasy, your boy here is Jack Bird at the lock spot. He played 4 or 5 games at lock last year, played a 75, 80-minute role, averaged about 50, 55. I'll be watching him, and if he gets 80 minutes in the middle and delivers, I'll be rushing to get him into my centers, because center is a really tough spot. And the other fantasy implication in the Dragons team is, Ben Murdoch-Masila winning that starting second row spot at base price could be a good option. Don't know his role, don't know how long he plays, but could be of interest.
Yeah, I find that such a weird position for Murdoch-Masila, because he hasn't played a lot of it over the last couple of years, both in Super League and at the Warriors. Hasn't played a lot of minutes as well. So you're looking at potentially playing him about 50, 60 minutes and then slotting in someone else there. I don't know. I just think they're a bit short in the forwards, as Longy said, that they are coming up against this Titans side. They've got much more standout players as well, and I just think that the Titans get the edge in this one.
The last thing I'm going to hit on here is this Titans backline. We've got Keegan dropping in Jojo Fafita, Smokey for Origin. I'm assuming JoJo's a Queenslander. I think he's just making origin because there's no touch.
Yeah,
as well,
he's heard that. I feel like he's heard that from. I did watch that on one of the NRL shows. Someone, it was Mal. I might have been Mal Meninga actually.
Have faith. Keegan's all original thoughts. I'm backing Keegs here, but look, he's been in good form. I mean, look, Calm Pereira, he scored 6 tries in 2 trial games as well. He was kept absolutely smiling against the Tigers, but they're pretty explosive.
Right now it's Cobbo and Taulagi, and I think you got Xavier Coates maybe waiting in the wings there, depending on how he goes this year. So I'd say after that, probably look at a guy like JoJo.
Yeah, juicy. We've got a question in TikTok as we go to the next game here. Question is, who's your favorite team?
The end of the round.
That's all of them. All right, well, we're going to finish off with the who's your favorite team. I'm going to go into fantasy and Supercoach right after this, but I'm just going to hop around, boys. I'm a big Para fan. Massive Para fan. Die-hard member. Biz, Para fan as well.
Yeah.
We both joined together in 2014 as members, so we're absolute diehards. And then Miles is just kind of gross. You can say your team there, man.
North Queensland Cowboys, baby. Let's go.
And we just got a comment there in TikTok. Hey, do you guys do Supercoach Fantasy? Look, the link is in the description on the page there. So join. We're about to go right into Supercoach and Fantasy. So Fantasy first here. Let's jump right into it. And before we do go through this, I'm going to start with the visual because a lot of the people that ask us questions around fantasy are new to the game, so they're 1 or 2 or 3 years in. We're going to present from the visual that you're going to have in your app so that you can actually learn a bit about navigating the app as well. But
can I just say before you go on, for anyone questioning, Longing has won fantasy before, so he has come first. He's taken out 25 grand, gone to the World Cup with Aussie boys. So if you want to take fantasy advice, we've got a champion right here.
Yeah. Thank you, Vince. Yeah, any questions? My thing on fantasy is that you just have to trust your gut. So watch the games yourself, trust your gut, and make calls based on your own assumptions, because if you follow the crowd, then you're not going to win. That's the key thing. But look, let's jump right in. So first go up, Jermaine Hopgood. Big increaser, up 60K, 513K. I think he's still big value. Big value in fantasy. You get 5 offloads from him round 1. You got 4 points in offload. That's 20 points in offloads alone. He had 50 odd tackles. He had, 155 meters. Just a massive work rate. He already has a license.
I think he's a must buy. If you don't have him, get him in. He's still priced at about the 38-point mark. I think he played 80 minutes. When Ryan Madison comes back, probably doesn't get 80 minutes again. But even if he plays 60 or 70, at his work rate and PPM, he'll average in that 50 mark. Has the upside to average 60 plus. Do whatever you can to get him in now, because he's not going to be any cheaper than this.
Yeah, completely agree. Next guy here, Jermaine Osako, plus 56K. So for fantasy,
tough to see him repeating that. Yeah.
Wingers?
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah, agree. Next up, Mark Nichols. Biz, I'm going to throw that one to you, because I'd be a bit biased talking about myself.
Yeah. Mark Nichols, he's a bit of a mid-ranger at this point. He's scored a try. He's not going to score too many of those this year. Well, maybe not. But he has pretty strong work rate. But he's also got a history of head knocks and concussions. He's the type of bloke who can just get knocked out on a couple of hit-ups into the game and really cost you. At 480K, I don't think it's worth bringing him in now. He'll probably average in the 40 range, and I think at 480K, I'll spend the money elsewhere.
Yeah, agree. He's not going to get those big minutes. And look, he's a good player for the Dolphins, but not fantasy, I don't think. Lockie Ilias, we talked about a bit before with Souths, and we're a bit of a split group. We did have a couple of questions just come through right now about South versus Penrith. I'm tipping Souths in that game. But for Lockie Ilias, if you're on Ilias, you have to be really on Ilias and Souths, because at 480K, he's going to have to be a bit of a premium half to warrant that price.
Yeah, he's going to have to average 50.
Yeah. I think the work rate's there, though. Like, there's not really a lot of kicking in that spine outside of Ilias. He could get a good base from kicking.
Yeah.
So-
Look, the thing with Elias is he's one of those players that he can be tremendous in real life, but it won't translate to fantasy. I think he has shown improvement over the back end of last year and to start this year. I think he probably averages in the 40 to 45 mark. Mid-ranger doesn't do it for me. If he comes out and scores 60 plus again, I might think about it. But at this stage, I'm not even considering him.
One thing I will guess, just continue with Ilias is that, we saw that the Rabbitohs favoured that right side the other night as well. If they continue to do a bit of that, I can easily see Ilias averaging, upwards of 40 this year, through try assists and kicks as well. It is a bit of a catch-22 with Ilias. He did score in this game, probably had the best game of his career so far. It's about whether he can back it up each week.
He kind of reminds me, like, his ceiling is Cooper Cronk, his absolute ceiling. And whilst Cooper Cronk was an amazing player, he was never the top kind of 10 tier in fantasy just because he was, a high IQ player, ball playing. But fantasy halves, you want the guys who run, take on the line, tackle breaks, offloads. Like, at least is more of the try assist, line break assist guy. Like, it's not enough to get to a 55 mark.
Yeah, I agree with that. We had a question come through on the chat. I have Garner from Luke Van der Velde. He has Garner right now. He's looking to trade to Trent Lauriero. Do you rate that trade, and would you make that trade?
Yeah, I think so. I think they both have equal risks. Garner might play. I think Lauriero probably scores the same for about 100k less. He looked a bit fitter than Katoa, to be honest. Katoa was breathing in the big ones after 50, 60 minutes. So if Sims or Eisenhuth comes and takes minutes, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Katoa, although I think Katoa's a better player. But at this stage of the year, when you've got trades to play with, you can be a bit more aggressive, and I think that's a pretty decent trade. But especially with Garner having the buy in week 3. But it's not a must trade, but it's not a bad one either.
See, I'd give Garner another week, personally. I think you got to give him another chance. That edge was really poor in Penrith last week, and if they can fix that, which they should be able to fix that, then I'd give him another shot. Lauriero,
if he fails this week though, Garner, and they carry him through the bye, it's week 4. Then would you be looking to get rid of him then? Or
you got to get rid of him after this week. Yeah, if he fails this week, cut him.
Yeah, you make a call then.
If he gets 80 minutes, you hold him, right? If he gets 80 minutes and still scores poorly, I think you can hold him because at 80 minutes, traditionally, he scores at that 50-point mark. But if he gets 50, 60 minutes, then not worth your trouble.
Now, I'm going to throw the next 3 in at one go. So, Josh King, Bryce Cartwright, Lemielu. Of those 3, which one would you most like to have in your fantasy team? Not thinking about price.
Not thinking about price is Josh King. I think he'll average the highest over the season. He's got a safe role in the team, probably average 40 to 45 through the year. Cartwright's only really a rental for the next few weeks while Lane and Madison come back, but he's a good rental. He's almost base price, and he's a 57 week 1, probably average the 45 mark. I think he's a pretty good trade in this week. He could probably make another 150k. Conley, I'm really big on. A bit risky. He's not getting the minutes at this stage, but if he was to lock up a starting role, he's someone I think he could average 50 plus. He's a really exciting player. But I would go King, Connolly, Cartwright over the season, but right now Cartwright, King, and then Connolly.
Correct, King, Connolly. Yeah, yep. I think that's fair. I mean, King, again, he's a bit like Lauriero in that he needs those big minutes to be worth it. You sort of look at the forward package they're missing and whether he's going to keep getting those minutes. I think he's a shot at getting those minutes, but I wouldn't touch him. That was his best score ever. There's better guys you can get in this week. Junior Paulo. Yeah. Junior Paulo sliding down. Another one that, he had a pretty vintage game. We got Raiders Woo in the comments. He was a Raider before, Junior Paulo, but he's rightfully at Parramatta now. So, yeah, for him, I wouldn't touch him. Trey Evans had a all-time game. Scored 93 in fantasy. That was pretty huge. If you're getting Trey Evans, you're getting him for the year. So if you think Trey Evans and Manly are going to turn up all year and play like that, then get him. And you won't regret getting Cherry Evans. I wouldn't break my team to get Cherry Evans, but okay, I'm going to throw one at you actually, both of you. If you had Matt Burton and you had the trades and the money spare, would you go Burton to Cherry Evans at this point?
He has the Cherry Evans obviously has the bye this week, but yeah, for the rest of the season, no, I wouldn't. I think Cherry Evans, he's a guy who'll average 60 every year. Depends, like Manly, a good, Manly a bad, he'll average 60 right now. He's already priced at that mark. He had a great game. He's not going to score a hat-trick every week. He'll average 60 again. He's not really a value. I wouldn't bring him in unless you're bringing a keeper for the year. I wouldn't trade a keeper to a keeper at this stage.
What if Burton had a stinker again this week against Melbourne and he was looking like dropping a lot of money?
I mean, Burton is so far away from the price of Cherry Evans that you probably need 2 trades to do it. I don't think it's worth it. I would look for other options for Burton. I'm not sure what you think, Miles.
Yeah, it's tough because they've had, I would say, a rough start to the season, playing the Seagulls, and then they've got, the Storm. But they do have the Tigers and Warriors coming up. So I think you've got to look at matchups for Burton rather than Cherry Evans this week, dud week, he's got the bye. So you either had to have him round 1 to start with or wait till, week 3 to look at moving him. I'd say I agree with you in saying that if you've got both, I'd give Burton another week and then look to do something. And, I'd just stick with Cherry Evans at this point because he outscored everyone in round 1. I wouldn't be looking to get rid of him at all.
I 100% agree with that. If you look at last season, Burton, he started poorly, ended poorly, but he had that middle streak where he got real hot, where he's scoring 70, 80 every week. He's that type of player. So you're better off just holding him for the season. But if you're trading him, if he starts poorly and you want to trade him, what I personally would do is try and make some cash in the first 4 weeks and then take him straight up to Hines when he comes back. That's probably the best way I'd do it.
Don't mind that. Don't mind that at all. Let's go to the next group here. So Emre Gula, no. Josh Papali, he's back soon. I wouldn't touch that. Then a couple of South players, Michael Cheekham and the Myth. Michael Cheekham's been in a lot of fantasy teams over the years and always disappointed. But then you've got Shaq Mitchell as well. Shaq played with a lot of motor. There's a bit of space there. Awkward price at 286 now. Do either of those guys interest you at all?
Cheekham, if Arrow is out for a long time, I would be interested in Cheekham if Arrow was 6 weeks. But like Miles said, he sounds interested in Shaq. Overall, I'm more interested in Shaq. I thought he had a really strong game. I would be personally really close to bringing him in this week, but I'm just not sure with all the injuries South's had if he has a big minute role when all those guys like Knight, Saleh, Havili, who all play in the middle, come back. So I'm just going to have to skip. But if you're ballsy and you want to bring him in, I back it. He has a good PPM and he looks strong. And it sounds like, Miles, you're on that bandwagon.
Yeah, definitely. If Shaq can get the minutes, especially with guys like Mark Nichols not being in the team anymore, they do have Davey Moali there, who is also a pretty decent young prospect. But I thought Shaq overshadowed him the other night. With Totola out, if they're going to have outs in that prop forward rotation, then Shaq's looking like a pretty good bet there.
I still probably won't get him, to be honest. Like, I'm just prioritizing here, and it's a good place to be. Souths as a front rower, and Martin Nichols leaves, so there is a bit of space popping up there too. It could be interesting, but
yeah, I mean, Totola also got knocked out in the first hit up, so that obviously had an impact. So yeah,
it helps a little bit.
Yeah. Well, Totola does play 50 minutes, so...
Yeah. Next batch I'm going to look at here. So 3 guys, 3 wing fullback center kind of guys who have very low base stats historically and have been kind of fantasy plotters for a long time. Brent Naden, the Hammer, and Charles Nickel-Flogstad. Of this 3, I want you to kill F marry the 3 here. So, or start bench.
Why don't you say buy, sell, hold or something?
Yeah. Look, buy, sell, hold. Of these 3, I'm going to jump in first. I'm buying Chance Nickel-Flogstad. he's been a 40 average in the past, and if the Warriors are semi-decent offensively, then he's going to be really effective this year. Good base, and yeah, if he can score some of those tries, that's awesome. I'm probably going to bench. That's a hard one. I really liked what I saw from Hamiso, but I just have so little faith in his base. And the same with Naden. I mean, Naden was very good in the trials as well. I'm probably taking Hamiso over Naden at this point, but I think Charles Nickel-Fogstad is the best of the bunch. How about you, Biz?
I think I would go Hamiso over Chance just simply for the dual position, especially because centers are so garbage generally. I would play Hamiso in my centers. I also think that this year being the inaugural year for the Dolphins, if they can get on a roll, and the thing I was really impressed about with Hamiso was his work rate. He looked for the ball. He took a lot of hit ups, looked threatening. So did Chance. I think Chance is a lower ceiling. But yeah, I'd go Hamiso on the DPP. He's someone I'm considering myself because he's probably going to get to the 500k mark and hover around that spot. So it's probably the cheapest you'll get him. And Naden, he's looked really good this year, but he's a guy that's historically averaged 20, even when he was at the stacked Panthers team. I don't know why he'd be that much better at the Tigers. He might have some improvement. His work rate looks to improve, but at 330k, I'd rather just continue to play guys like Alamotti and Harley Smith-Shields for 80k cheaper, and you might get similar blow-up games here and there.
Yeah, fair play, Hamiso. I mean, if he can keep doing what he's doing, because he was looming up the middle so much, so he's going to make a lot of line breaks, going to get a few tackle busts. You're going to have to cop those 10, 15-point games with Hamiso, though, so just don't panic too much. I mean, to be fair, you're probably starting Alamotti at this point in the centers if you're thinking about Hamiso, so you got 17 from him, which means your stands aren't that high at this point. Miles, I'll quickly throw to you. Which one of these guys shouts out at you?
Yeah, for me, it is Hamiso. If you want, it's kind of like what you said with Lachlan Ilias, right? You're either in on Hamiso or you're not. And you've got to either believe that the Dolphins are going to play really well, or you've got to believe that, Hammer will just return to his usual lackadaisical type play and not be as effective. But what Biz said was, work rate. You saw a lot of it on the weekend. He ran for nearly 200 meters. That's a big effort from a guy who was struggling to get a starting spot last year at the Cowboys. So, yeah, I'd be going to Hammer. If you want to go on history and previous performance, you go Chance. And Naden, to me, just with the Tigers the way they are, it's just so too hard to tell with Naden. There's way too much uncertainty there. The surest bet is Chance. The most upside is Hamiso.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We've got a question here too coming from Keegan. He's asked about Hines playing 14 for the Blues. So
Jared
probably
Hayne.
Yeah, when I first saw that comment, I was a bit surprised.
He did correct it, but
free my boy.
He asked Hines playing 14 for the Blues. Is Hines going to play 14 for the Blues? Does that impact you thinking about picking Hines this year in Fantasy or Supercoach?
Nope. Get him in as soon as you can.
Yeah, I think I don't think he'd be a big call as well. I don't think he'll be playing off the bench. I think he should be starting for the Blues.
Big call.
Big
I
call.
think
Yeah. For who?
you consider him over Luai.
Luai? Yeah.
Luai.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Yeah, I don't mind that.
Yeah, I would drop Luai for Hines or Moses at this point. I think both offer a ton more. And if Burton was in form, you'd think about him too. But yeah, Luai's not that high on my list. Let's jump into the next group here. So we've got a couple of really good hookers who had great round ones. One in a win, one in a loss. Reed Marnie, I had him in a couple of teams. And he looked good in a really bad dog side. And then Wade Egan was one of the players of the game for the Warriors. He had a try assist, did pick up an injury. If you guys had to pick one of these guys for your team, considering price there as well, there was a bit of a difference. Which one do you like better?
Marnie.
Jeez, so tough. I do like Reed over Wade Egan, though, just based on, I think the Dogs will have a better season than the Warriors. Wade Egan seems to have a better forward pack, which provides a few more opportunities for running. which I think could play in your decision making here to pick Egan over Reed. But Reed just has that that kicking game. He's probably got a better work rate tackling wise as well than Wade. So I'd be going with Reed just.
I think on Reed, he's shown that he can average 60 before, and that's the difference. I have a bit more confidence.
Yeah, completely agree. And he's a focal point in that attack. Flash Green, everyone gave me the no by tipping Broncos and Dolphins. Mate, if you had commented that before the round, I would have been asking some questions, but it worked. So you need to post your tips for this week, actually, in the chat. Because I don't want you coming in next week telling me you tipped all the upsets too. So post those right now. And Keegan had Reed as captain, which is a win. Let's go through these next guys here. So look, we got a few guys. I don't think we need to go into depth on all of them. Interrupt me if you think any of these are wrong. But Campbell Graham, I'm not that interested. He grabbed 2 tries there. He's priced at $650K. He doesn't have the upside of more than that for me. Liam Martin, he is who he is. I'm not that interested. Tohu Harris scored 70. That's kind of interesting.
80 minutes as well, which I wasn't expecting. Like a year away from the ACL, looked to jump into every tackle, made a big set of meters, has averaged 60 plus in a couple of seasons. So he's one guy that I'm not really sure if I think one of the players, I can't remember who now when I was watching them, went down with injury or HIA. Might have been Egan. Egan caught the HIA? He did, right? I'm not sure if that extended Tohu's minutes. And I can't imagine Josh Curran gets less than 20 minutes all season. So Tohu seems like a guy who might get 65, 70. But if he keeps getting 80, he could be one of the hottest guns in the league. So I'll watch this week. And if he gets 80 again, I might have to think about shifting a few people around. But you just got to remember, you can't have everyone. So yeah, no, he's juicy. He is juicy. Like, he's a guy you should be aiming for, because your question when you're bringing in one of those big guns is, am I going to keep them all year? And to tell you who you absolutely are. Let's roll through. So Lindsay Collins. Lindsay Collins is kind of interesting. Yeah,
not that interesting. He'll definitely play Origin. He's had some injury history, but he's a front rower who has been on that precipice of making that next leap, and there is a chasm in the Roosters forward pack. So you could potentially make a masterstroke, like a very similar to Joe Tarpanay last year sort of masterstroke, picking up a Lindsay Collins. And Lindsay Collins, I'm not saying it with certainty, but Lindsay Collins is one of those guys who could potentially win you your league if he kicks on.
Yeah. He started strong. He's shown he can score strongly before. I actually looked at him last night because I would see him playing 60-odd minutes almost in this Roosters pack, and generally he scores at a pretty high PPM. So there's a world where he can average 55, and at his price, 55 is real strong value. His price is about 39 right now, if my maths is right. So if you've got faith he's going to get the minutes, I would pull the trigger now.
Yeah, which I think he will, because you lose Lodge as well. I actually might look at that trade now. Next question we got, and it relates to Sonny Luke, who's next up here, because don't touch Hutchison. Please don't trade Hutchison to your teams. But Sonny Luke, Keegan's asked, should I swap Brandon Smith for Sonny Luke? No. I wouldn't be moving off Brandon yet. I wouldn't move off Brandon yet. I think Brandon is a starter. Brandon won the Dally M Hooker of the Year in 2019. He led the league in dummy half runs, I think, that year, and he scored a bunch of tackle busts that year too. So, he had a tough week, and he was destroyed by Felice Kafusi a couple of times in that game. And I think he was surprised by the Dolphins. He won't make that mistake again. I'd keep Brandon Smith for at least a couple more weeks just to see what it's going to be. If Turpin's eating 30-plus minutes, then maybe you'd look at moving him on.
But the one thing I definitely week one, right? Like the way I always think about it is you came into the season thinking this is the role they're going to get, and you brought them in. Everyone knew Cheese wasn't going to get 80 minutes. He got 60 minutes, which is bang on what people expected. That didn't change. So, Cheese is a guy in 60 minutes, he can score 20 or he can score 80, right? Because he's an explosive player. So I wouldn't move off him just yet, because you've seen 5-6 years of a track record where in 60 minutes he can average 55. But Sonny Luke, he got the role that I expected. 25 minutes, he scored a try. Like, it's too early to bring him in with the bye next week. I would hold Cheese. I would hold off on bringing in Sonny Luke.
Smith also played that, roaming middle forward role for a bit while Radley went off the field, and it's tough because he was playing out of position in a role that, he played pretty well for Melbourne, but with a new team, I think it could be a while for, things to gel there, and they were just getting blown up by the Dolphins. So I think he was trying a few things that maybe he didn't plan to, and it all changes when Victor Radley kind of goes down.
And look, to preface, I don't own Cheese because I thought at 60 minutes there wasn't that much value, but I don't see anything that changed my expectations of him in week 1. So if you brought him in, you keep him, and he'll get fitter as the season goes on. He'll gas pretty early. He'll get fitter. He'll be sharper, and he took a couple of quick burrows out of dummy half near the try line. He's pretty adept at those tries. He gets one of those tries, it's plus 25 points almost in one play. So I would keep him.
Yeah, he's a real change of pace player as well. So if he gets that rest and then comes back on, he can just be really dynamic and make up all the points he lost. Speaking of change of pace, I'm going to change up the music on this YouTube live because I feel like it. Look, let us know in the comments if you like the change of music or if you want something different. But look, the other thing I want to mention here is Sonny Luke. I don't think it's unwise to get Sonny Luke. Like, you're not getting him as your starting hooker, but if you get him and you just don't panic about the fact that there's going to be a couple of low-scoring games, then you're pretty much guaranteed a guy whose role is only going to increase through the season and who's going to come on for very, very active minutes as an offensive hooker. So, yeah, I don't mind that pick. Look, there's a couple of other guys here that I want to ask about. Young Tonamapia, Jackson Ford. Let's stick with those two for now. Both guys who not many people expected much from. Tonamapia has been a bit of a beast before, but never really consistently done it for fantasy. Boys, do you have any interest in either of them?
Jackson Ford, definitely.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Ford is someone you'd bring in now. Young Tonamapia, he's really only a placeholder for Oldham, so he's not going to be there too long, I think. He's averaged 30 playing at centre over his career, so he was undervalued. But I think, especially with Munster out, he's probably not going to be as threatening offensively. And I think his limited time at 350k now, I would avoid.
Yeah.
But Ford, 80 minutes, looked really good, looked amazing all preseason. He's been their best player, arguably, for the start of the year. Dual position, 360k. If you don't have him, I'd try to bring him in.
I get what you're saying. Everything you're saying is absolutely correct. Ford reeks of trap to me. And he played that 80 minutes. He had a really good game. He scored 44. So if you extrapolate that down to 60 minutes, Josh Curran gets to 40 minutes, for example. That becomes 33. And if they end up picking their best side, then Ford isn't in the starting side. But I really think Ford's one of those guys where we could see him on the bench before about round 4. So, while it makes sense, he's one that I would steer clear from. But at the same time, it could totally pan out. I could be totally wrong. So, yeah. But we've got a question in the comments here from Brixie, who's come across from TikTok and joined the live here on YouTube. Can you rate this fantasy team? So everyone have a look at this team here. I'm having a look, and I'm getting the feeling that Brixie, you've got a team that's very good for real life, maybe lacking a little bit in a fantasy scoring sphere. So one of the things you want to look at fantasy is a lot of times really good players, like Darren Lockyer was the best example of this. He was a phenomenal player in real life, but didn't convert to fantasy. I think a few of these guys here are a bit like that too. So you want to try and steer clear of those middle range guys who are between 400 to 600k, and you want to try and get the top line players or basement cheap players basically. So like a Tom Dearden, for example, I'd be swapping him out for maybe try and get a gun, and maybe trade a Spencer Leniu for a minimum price guy like a Shaq Mitchell or someone in that sphere.
Yeah, I agree with that, Longy. I think the one thing to remember is you're always looking for people who can, if you're not getting an elite gun at the top tier price, you're looking for players who are 10 to 15 points undervalued. Like, for example, guys like Val, he's a gun at the position, so maybe not him. But guys like Dearden, as you mentioned, he's near here nor there. He's kind of mid-range. Like if you're not getting a Hines, Cherry Evans, Cleary, I would be playing a guy like Katoa or a Trindle kind of thing. So I'm always the guns and cows strategy. Load up with the top guys and then fill out the team with the cashies and rely on my guns.
You know what I'd do right away, actually? Alex Johnston out for Taruva. Grab Taruva from Penrith. He didn't have the craziest game for round one, but you grab him. He's a Penrith winger. He's going to score enough points. He's got a great work rate. That frees up a bunch of cash for you. Then you can look at even jumping, with the Fox at O'Carr up to one of the top fullbacks. You go the Fox to... Turbo was a bit injured, but he was okay in round one. Maybe go Fox to Turbo. And you've got a bit of free cash there to play with moving forward.
Yeah, I would maybe even look at Lockie Miller or someone for Johnston. He scored a 40-odd without doing too much.
I'd be definitely trying to get rid of, a guy like, Ben Trebojevic as well, just because we've seen in the past that he's probably not going to get the minutes, as well as, and I hate to say this as a Cowboys fan, and Nanai as well is probably not ideal. Yes, he scores a lot of tries, but his base isn't phenomenal, and he's going to be, his price is quite up there as for a player who doesn't have a great, work rate in terms of making a lot of tackles. He misses a lot as well. So, the second rowers, I'd take a look at some other guys who are going to get some more minutes, who have a better work rate.
We've got a few people in the comments here and on TikTok taking the Turbo advice. So if he gets hurt, don't blame me. But we've got a question here from Brixie as well, asking for forward recommendations. On the forward pack, I'm really high on Eli Katoa. I think Eli Katoa had, for the Storm, he had a really average game round one in terms of actual footy, but he still scored really well in that game, and he's only going to get better in that Melbourne system. So grab Eli Katoa if you can. That's going to free up some cash.
Or Loiero, either or.
Yeah, I was going to say the options to get some cheap forwards in: Katoa, Loiero, Jackson Ford, Joe Stimson now playing the 80-minute role for the Titans with Beau Fermor going down for the year. Yeah. These are all guys who should probably average 40-odd for 400k or less. And then you can look at, if you need more cash, potentially a Burn Murdoch, Masilla, who's won that second row spot. Could be a bit of a trap, but worth the risk. So they're all good value forwards. And then, like we've talked about already, Shaq Mitchell, Davey Moale, these sorts of guys, at the bargain spot. And then use that money to upgrade someone else to a Papali, a Damien Cook, Cam Murray, these types of guys.
Question for everyone watching across TikTok, YouTube, all that sort of thing. Do you want us to make a more condensed video? So potentially after this, we can record just the top guys to pick up in every position. We can make a recorded video and just go through those, really condense it down, make it like a 5-minute video and just pump through those. Is there interest in that?
I think it'd be beneficial.
Yeah, it would be good to maybe we could do like a top 5 buys, top 5 hold, top 5 sells kind of style, and then you can power through it in your morning commute.
Yeah, we got a bunch of people asking for buys, hold, sells. Keen. Brixie's a Cowboys fan, by the way, Moss. So
that's nice.
That's one for you. But awesome. We'll record that right after this. Then just make sure you sub to the channel on TikTok, and we'll post them across both. We'll really condense that down. We've also got the website, so we do post some articles there too. Let's keep rolling through here. I'm going to blast through some of these because we're down to some more attainable guys. And interrupt me again if you think any of these guys are worth talking about. But for me, Jeremy Marshall-King at 700k, I wouldn't do it. I don't think it's worth it. Tom Starling, he's coming off the bench. He played 43 minutes last game. Good regular performance. Kepi, no. Robson, 74 points. You go Robson or Grant, right? You can't really take both.
I mean, you could go, but I've gone Cook myself on the base that Cook's always averaged 65, whereas I feel like Robson and Grant are the 60 type of players. I think they can both step up to 65, but Cook was a 5% ownership when I went for him, so I kind of, wanted that bit of a pot. Like a guy who averages 66 last year to be a pot is as good as it gets. But yeah, I can see in the comments Keegan said or Reed. Reed's not a bad option if you think he's going to be excellent this year because he's been in that top 2 hooker position before. But Robson's not a guy I would break my team for now at this stage. Like you either start with him or you bring him in later. I wouldn't rush to get him in.
That is utter disrespect for the incumbent, New South Wales number 9 this year.
Incumbent.
Incumbent. I don't like that.
Not the word you
should have played
right?
Sorry, in my head, he played last year.
He was close. He was 18th, wasn't he?
Yeah, something like that.
18th, 19th, yeah.
The other guy I'm going to throw there too is
maybe we would have won
Cook.
the series.
Damien Cook. I personally reckon Damien Cook, and look, Kyle dropped in the comments here, 68 points in his base, 5% ownership. I've got Cook in a few drafts, a couple of leagues.
Cook was my first pick. Yeah. Well, actually, second. I had Hines first pick and Cook. Like I said, I always go guns and cows. I always pick like 6 or 7 of the top 10 and that fill out my team. And Cook was too good to pass up on. He's just so consistent. And he, with Wayne Bennett gone, he's running a bit more. He's going to be my team all year, and he's a great captaincy option week in, week out.
We should do a team reveal at some point as well.
We should.
Let's roll in here. So, look, Lauriero, we talked about him a lot. Lauriero, we like Lauriero. There is some risk to minutes, but Tarek Sims probably middle, especially with the injuries that the Storm have. Mitch Kenny.
So just on that, Longy, I'm actually reading reports that Tarek's just only started training with the team recently, so he could still be, a few weeks away. I would. These guys sometimes you just got to go in hard and fast.
I've heard he's going to play lock.
Yeah, exactly. But like I was saying, these are the types of guys who you can't hesitate. They've got short windows where they can just blow out. If you want it, if you're hot on him, go now. Don't wait a week. If you think Tarek's not going to take his minutes or Eisenhuth won't, you got to go right now before he becomes 500k and it's not worth it anymore.
We've got a question too, just on back row, is about Teague Wilton, minus 20 in demerits this week. I'm not interested in Teague Wilton at all. I think at the price, there's just so many good back rows you can get. So we go to guys like Matt Dury, guys like Bryce Cartwright, very short window, Jermaine Hopgood, Trent Lauriero, Ellie Katoa.
Yeah, Teague is a great player, and when he gets 80 minutes, he's excellent. But he's not really a top tier guard. And Sharks have so many good forwards. Any given week, you could get an early benching or 60 minutes. It's not really worth the upside.
Also, Brixie's just come back. He's made his trades. Dearden for Katoa, Alex Johnson for Lockie Miller. You probably have a bunch of cash in the bank there too, so that's setting you up nicely.
Yeah, it's a good chance to bring in guys like Turbo or Cherry Evans or Cook and Murray next week. So you might cost yourself some points this week, but you can load up for next week.
Big time. Let's keep rolling with these guys. Look, Mitch Kenny, I think his role reduces as the season goes on. And at 446, you're not going to make enough money to justify that trade. Heimel Hunt.
I think he loses his spot to Marzu. I was looking at him, but I can't think he keeps out Marzu for too long. I think he's great value, but surely he doesn't hold the spot.
No, he won't.
Agreed. David Moale. Miles, any interest?
I was higher on Shaq, to be honest. But if it depends on who they go with. If they've got a few injuries,
I like Moale. That starting spot. I think they like him better. Joe Stimson.
Bit of risk. Yeah, Stimson.
Yeah, he's
a lower type. Yeah. He's. I think a lot of players don't like him because he's burnt a few people before. But I think his competition for the spot is going to be Sam McIntyre, also at the Titans, and Payne Haas's younger brother Cleese. But I think Stimson has that, and with the solid start to the year, he probably won't get dropped anytime soon. When he plays 80 minutes, he averages about 40. I personally won't be bringing him in at 390k because I don't really have anyone I want to trade out at this point. But if you have guys to trade out, he's someone I'd be looking at.
We had a question come through as well. Burton to Dewey and Garner to Cardi. What do you think of that?
I'd do Garner to Cardi. I would hold Dewey. I'd hold Burton. I wouldn't trade out a gun.
Hold Burton, yeah.
But Garner to Cardi, I think, if you want Cardi, you got to do it this week. He's got a low break even. He'll play 3, 4, 5 more weeks and score 40s in the meantime. Yeah, I'll pull my trigger on that.
Yeah. All right, that. The other one I look at here, we'll just go to the top scorers as well. So we've talked about a lot of these guys already. just jumping through them. We talked about Damien Cook, 68, really a very base set heavy performance. Cam Murray played 80 minutes. They're missing some big forwards going forward. They're not going to have 15 players for 60 minutes every week, but do you like the idea of going $905,000? I want to buy Cam Murray today.
Yeah, I started with Murray.
Nice.
Yeah, but again, he's a guy. He's going to probably score what he's priced at, so I wouldn't rush to bring him in.
He does get rested a little bit, and that's the thing with I've had Cam Murray in the past, and they do take him off at weird times during the games. Sometimes,
Right.
like it depends on almost how the coach is feeling that day. Like he'll take Murray off for a weird 10-minute period, and then the Rabbitohs will start losing, obviously, and then they'll bring Murray back on and be like, oh, we should never have taken you off. So he's an 80-minute player and you should get 80 minutes every week, but for 905, to me that's too much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think if you don't start with him, you're going to need like 2 or 3 trades to bring him in now, or trade out a gun. It's not worth moving a team around for. I would try and bring him in as early as I can, just like Hines, but no immediate rush.
Yep, completely agree. And then we run at look, Dave Clemmer. We know who Clemmer is.
Clemmer got more minutes than I expected. 65 minutes. He's always been a worker. If he keeps getting 65, he will be a top tier. He'll be that Haas kind of Carrigan category, but he's already priced above Carrigan. So if I was going to bring in Clemmer, I'd rather bring in Carrigan myself. So.
It's good to see him get minutes at a new team, though, so you kind of have an idea of how much time he's going to get on the field. Not sure he'll get that moving forward because Twal started at lock and then Offengawi came on off the bench. Offengawi is probably another guy that we need to talk about him being, because his minutes are going to be severely affected from last year. Quite a good fantasy performer, recent seasons. But yeah, Clemmer, it's good to see that he just is the same Clemmer, that we can expect.
Yeah, and he was good too in real life, which is a good sign.
He's a good player. I mean, there's a lot of middle forwards there, though. Maybe Blore gets into the middle rotation when Bateman comes back as well. That's one thing to think about. But yeah, look, on the Tigers there too. We'll skip over Carrigan because we all know Carrigan's a weapon. If you can get Carrigan, get Carrigan. Adam Dewey, he was really good in a beaten team. I think I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, look, Dewey was so good in the Tigers team that struggled. He'll be even better when they're flying. I wouldn't apply that logic. He personally had a great game in that game, and he's not going to do... He'll have games where he scores 100 this year. But I don't think you can say, oh, the Tigers will be better, so he'll be better. I think Dewey is just a guy who's consistently averaged in the 60s when he started, and he's going to do that this year. So get him in if you can get him in, but don't expect him to be Cleary.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like sometimes people think, a team gets better, you'll automatically get better. But sometimes if a team is crap, they carry the workload that much further. Like they just put them on the back, they do everything. Look at Ben Hunt, right? So not necessarily. I think Dewey I've strong. Yeah, I've got him, but I've got Dewey because he's averaged 60 at 6, not because I think he'll get incremental attacking stats from the Tigers being better. So yeah, again, no rush to bring him in if you don't start with him. But I think he's a solid buy, and you'd be pretty happy with the start.
Yeah, absolute weapon. Let's skip through here. Lemiello, there's a lot of guys to consider. I mean, he's pretty juicy as a center, but minutes are questionable. Payne Haas is Payne Haas. 63, he just did what Payne Haas is going to do. I'm not desperately rushing to get Payne Haas. He's a guy that you'd be happy to get, but I think he's one more where you let your cash cows do their work, let your cheapies sort of go up in value, and then build your way up to Payne Haas a bit later in the season.
Yeah,
Sean O'Sullivan. Sean O'Sullivan has done it in fantasy a lot in the past.
Yeah,
I think O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
Are you high?
No, I'm high. Like he's already expensive, right? He's $730K now. I think he averages 50 to 55, but unlike some of the guys like Cherry Evans and Cleary and Moses who get 500 kick meters per game, he kind of actually split it with Katoa. Like he got 250 meters. I think Sullivan again. Just not as talented as those guys, probably rung below. I think he'll average 50 to 55, but at his price, not worth getting in. The way I see it is like, if you're really pulling to get a gun now, it's someone who's underpriced. And I think all the guns we're talking about at the moment they're just scoring what they're expected to score. Haas, Carrigan, Murray, they got mid-60s, Cook, but that's what they're priced at. So, unless you think they're going to average 80, then no, I wouldn't break your squad to get them in.
And that was a great game for us in terms of a low-scoring, grinding game against a Penrith team who were, not scoring that many points. It was raining and that kind of thing. So that was perfect for Payne Haas. I've got a question here from Liam on TikTok. Munster to Dewey and offer Hangawi to Payne Haas as his two trades.
That's good.
I love. Yeah, that's probably the best trade that we've seen suggested.
Yeah, that's good.
It helps
definitely.
That Offer and Munster are such easy trade outs, but if you can do that,
that's Haas and Dewey are great picks. I think Dewey at his price point is still undervalued, and if you have to trade out a guy, I wouldn't trade out Burden, but I would trade out Munster. So Dewey's a great pick,
especially hurt. Munster's out this week.
Yeah.
Question for you, Miles, because I know you're a big Dolphins man. Brixie's asked, do you know what's happening with Milford and Nikorima?
Old. Done.
Well, I wouldn't say old because Nikorima's still in his mid-20s.
Milford's 28 as well. That's
similar.
Harsh.
Milford's similar as well. I just think that with with Isaiah Katoa, we saw a little bit on the weekend of what he can do. Yeah, he got absolutely lit up by Suwali at one point, but I think that's acclimatizing to the game, and I just think that Milford's had so many opportunities now, and I don't know, maybe it's a mental thing that he just can't get past because he was such a heavily touted player coming through juniors, and same with Nikorima. And Nikorima, I've seen over the last couple of years, like we saw it at Souths a bit last year, can come off the bench and play that hooker role. And I think that is where if the Dolphins were to play him anywhere, that's the spot that he would fill into. Just right now, I think you go with the future, and the Dolphins are a future club, and they're kind of backing the young 19-year-old at this point in time.
Yeah. Blue Water asked for Brixie's fantasy team as well. So just to quickly remind on that, Blue Water, here's Brixie's team. Sully, Johnston, Val, Hammer, Fox, Munster, Dearden, Safidi, Robson, Linu, Ventroyich, now Raystone. We can't keep it up forever. But the advice there was, and it's good advice for anyone playing fantasy, get rid of those mid-range guys, get rid of those guys who are good players in real life but not scoring those big scores, and trade them to either the cheapies who we talk about, and we're going to make a short video on that right after this, or top line guns like Payne Haas, like Damien Cook, like all these guys. Let's roll through here. Cleary scored 61 in a game where he didn't do much at all, which is exactly why you get Cleary. I've seen people talking about trading him out, and I think that
no way. You don't trade him out ever. Unless he's injured or suspended. Yeah, he's my captain again this week. Would not be surprised in the slightest if he comes back and scores 100. And if he scores 60, so be it. 60 is not even that bad, right?
60's fine. 60's fine. And the thing with Cleary is you captain him at 60, and you just keep that going. And every now and then, it was like once a month last year, he's going for 100 plus. So,
the year before, I think he was averaging 98 at towards the halfway through the season. Something ridiculous. Without Hines gone, Cleary's your best captain option. Maybe Murray, Cook, and even some people are talking Hopgood, but Cleary is a guy who just scores everywhere. And the fantasy stats, people love him. I saw they just give him ghost points half the time. His score just goes. He was 49 and he updated to 61. I honestly don't know where those stats came from, but I'll take it. So, yeah, he's kind of like Cherry Evans in that regard.
Yeah, he's just a real set and forget type guy. I had Cherry Evans myself, so.
Nice.
They're both just unbelievable players, and they're going to get you 60 plus every week, no matter how they play. Yeah.
Yeah, monster. Let's roll through here because there's some really questionable guys now and big pods. So Latrell Mitchell, I'm going to pump through these. I'm going to ask you guys who your favorite is. But Latrell Mitchell carrying an injury right now, I'm a bit concerned about him. I wouldn't be bringing him in at 800k. Kaloa Matangi is a bit of a pod. If you back Souths and that right edge in particular to perform, he's juicy. Twal, I wouldn't do it. Minute's not solid. Papali'i, I wouldn't do it. He's in a worse situation than last year. He's priced very highly. Cotter,
Whoa.
not going to make the league. All right, I'll open it up.
Oh.
Let's
I'm
go.
high
Who
on
you got?
Papali. I have Papali in my team. He's just a guy that makes 35 tackles, 150 meters, can offload the ball. I don't think it really matters how good the team is to him. And he's as safe as a 60 average. Like, he scored 60 without doing anything. And that's exactly what I want. A guy who'll just average 60, doesn't need to try to do it. And if he scores a try, it's 75. And they bought him for big money, right? So they're going to use him. Like, they went to him a lot of times near the line. And he's the type of guy that, one every 5 times, he's going to bust that line open and score a try, and he goes up to the 75 mark. So I think his floor is high 50s and can average 70. So
I'll throw a question at you then, because we talked about Cam Murray before. Cam Murray, probably priced about the same. Which one would you choose if you were looking to bring in a gun forward this week?
To be honest, I have them equal. I would have them equal. If you need an edge, I'd go Papali. If you need a mid, I'd go Murray. But either one. I think they're both average 60 to 65 this year. And I like owning guys like Papali because they're just fun to watch. They can bust tackles, offload. That's why I want Fafita in my team. I don't have him, but I wish I did. Like, guy can score like 20 points in like 3 seconds, and I love that. Like, whereas guys like 12. Yeah, he might. If he gets 70 minutes, he'll average 60, but it'll be the most boring 60 points you'll ever see. And his minutes go up and down randomly. Like, he's kind of like Murray, but like worse. Like, the coach just randomly benches him or reduces his minutes 1 week. So I'd go Papali out of these guys. I like Yo for a similar reason. He'll get 80 minutes this year. He'll average 60. Cotter is the most upside for his price. Yeah.
I was about to say, you go Cotter out of the guys that are there. Just now, like if you also back on if you want to go with the guy like who's a little bit cheaper than Murray, Isaiah Yo's not a bad shout.
Yeah,
plays 80 minutes every week.
If you didn't have the bye next week, I would have started with Yo. I think, but I think Cotter, you're right, because he's the guy that can average 60, but is priced lower than that. But his minutes
and he doesn't play as many minutes.
Like if his minutes went up to 70 or 80, he can average 65 at a 55 price. So if you've got faith in his minutes, I'd bring him in over the other two. But for Papali and Yo, they're going to get 80 minutes, and they're going to score 60 points. You don't even have to worry about them.
Yeah. I mean, look, they're all pretty juicy. It's a bit about picking that team as well. So look at the teams that you're seeing there and think about the types of games they're going to play and the roles these guys are going to play too. Jumping down, Adam Reynolds, Ruben Garrick, Lindsay Collins, Tom Starling, Mitch Barnett, Cartwright. It gets pretty dodgy at this point. We talked about Collins before, and if he can get that sort of 60-odd minutes, he is serious value.
Yeah.
But these other guys, I mean, do you rate Barnett? Do you rate Garrick after the bye?
Nope. No. I would take out of this, I'd go Collins and Cartwright and Fafita in your screen there. Fafita, obviously a gun. You can get him in when you can. Cartwright still has like 150k to make. And Collins has some upside. I wouldn't go Collins myself. He's just at a niggly price. I've already got Egan Butcher, who I'm expecting similar things from. But Barnett in the middle is not as interesting. If he was the goal-kicking edge, 80 minutes, I'd love Barnett, but not in the middle.
Yep. Fair play. Fafita is a good one to talk about, though, because 772k, you get the right run of games for him. He is a guy who goes up to $1 million.
I think the one thing I like about Fafita... No, yeah, exactly. And the one thing I noticed about Fafita, he 200 meters last week. He didn't run for 200 meters once last year. So they've got his usage right this year. They're clearly actually going to give him the ball and make him run it. And if he's taking 25 runs, 200 meters, like this guy's going to rack up the points. Like he did nothing and scored 56. He had that one line break, but this guy like breaks the line like at least once a game. Like he could go back to that 70 average. And people thought he would get nerfed with the tackle break scoring change from 3 to 2, but this bloke offloads the ball a lot as well. And offloads are worth 4 points now if they go to hand. So he's still priced at like the 53. I would bring him in if you can. I'm trying to for me, I'm thinking of trades like even moving down Eli Katoa. I know we're all really high on him, but if I can get Eli Katoa to like a Ben Murdoch-Wasilla at base price and then move up like an Egan Butcher to a Fafita, I'm almost sure, because I'm just really high on Fafita this year and I want him in my team and I don't know how else I'll get him in.
Eli Katoa, you got to keep him.
Yeah, I'm going to keep, but yeah, I want Fafita.
Yeah. I rate it. let's go last segment here. So last segment for fantasy. Everyone drop your comments or your questions in as well. We'll think about them for future videos and probably make some this week. I'm going to look at the guys who have gone down in value the most. And I want to go like really quick fire. We're just going to go through each player. Buy, hold, or sell on each of these players. And maybe if you want a quick word on why, throw it in there. If you don't, then that's cool too. Josh Curran, for me, sell, trash minutes, keep an eye on him. Biz?
Yep, sell and watch to buy later in the year when he inevitably gets bigger minutes because he's too good to play 15 minutes. I would bring him back as soon as I can see some clarity on a bigger role.
Bergs?
Yeah, while Ford's there, I'd sell him 100%.
Nice. Katoa.
Too expensive.
Oh, sorry, Totola. Sell, but look for him in terms of price there and buying in the future.
Yep, he'll drop with that 1 in his score. He'll plummet cash over the next few weeks when he gets back on the park. If you can get him for 500 or K below, he'll be pretty good value.
Bang. Coruscant. I would hold if I did start with Coruscant because obviously you've seen something there. Actually, no, I wouldn't even hold. No, the other hookers are too good. I'd sell, but he's the closest to a hold here because he's going to be starting this week. If he gets
I would sell just because they seem pretty high on Simpkin, and I don't think he's going to get 80 minutes even if he starts. And I think at that price, if you can bring him up to Robson, etc., I would.
They've clearly shown over the last couple of years that they don't have faith in Simpkin. Otherwise, they would have made him the starter like week in, week out. They kept chopping and changing the team.
Yeah.
If you're the Titans, you're the Tigers, you're trying to turn over a new leaf. I don't understand why you don't play potentially one of the best players in the league over the last couple of years. It just makes absolutely no sense to me as a coaching decision.
No, I agree with that. I don't think Simpson should. I don't think he should play 80. But there must be a reason why they give Coruscant, like even Penrith, they didn't give him 80 minutes for Mitch Kenny, and Simpkin probably not that different. So I would definitely. I would sell Coruscant. There's just too much hookers at 675k. You need a 55 average, and you're not going to get that if he's not playing 80.
Yeah,
Juicy.
sell him.
All right, last few, we're going to go quick fire. So you get 3 words max on each player. Tyson Frizzell. Hold.
Sell.
Injured.
Hold. How is he? Yeah, okay. 3 words. If he's injured for long, sell. But if he's
named.
Yeah, if he's named and he's playing, you hold.
It's more than 3 words. Matt Burton. Hold. The faith.
Hold.
Cobbo.
Sell the shit out of him.
Nothing's changed.
Back at winning.
Hudson Young. Sell. Better options.
Sell.
Phoenix Crossland. Sell. Delete the app.
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
No.
James Tarmow. Sell.
Sell. Oh God.
Tedesco. Hold.
Yeah.
Maybe buy soon. Tino. Hold.
Sell.
Hold.
Didn't get big minutes. I would sell.
Jairo. Sell. Injured.
No.
Sell.
There's probably better options as well.
Kick out. Sell. Low work rate.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would have him in the first place, but sell.
Nanai. Sell for the same reason.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jaden Campbell. Sell. And it's not even if he started, it's not a certainty to get him at 570. Mortalo.
Sell.
No work rate.
Let's look for the hot ones here. Look, Dylan Brown.
Hold.
Sell.
I'm going to sell hard pictures, and he looked a bit dodge. Talakai, if you started with him.
Hold. There's nothing in centers. Hold.
Sell. He's terrible.
There aren't too many more guys here people would have. I mean, Tyron Wishart, don't get him. It's not going to be long enough. Last thing we're going to finish on here. Brixie's asked, what's the biggest cash cow? So we're going to hop around the group. Don't necessarily say the biggest cash cow, I reckon, but give me your favorite cash cow. So the guy that you're sort of most rooting for and you can see the most upside in. For me, I've said it so many times, it's Eli Katoa. I just think he's in the perfect situation. I think he's hyper talented. He wasn't playing league until a few years ago. it's a perfect storm for him to have a breakout season where he just dominates. So Ali Katoa for me could be a keeper. How about you, Biz?
I'll go Cartwright just because it's fun to see him go up. He's still 290. He's a guy who's proven he can score really strongly in the 80-minute role, and I think he'll have that 80-minute role until Maddo comes back in round 4, or maybe longer till Lane comes back in round 6. If he's there till round 6 and he's averaging 45, he's going to make 150, 200k quickly. And my plan is to use that money to get Hines in ASAP after that. So he's the guy I think who'll average the most at the cheapest price.
See, mine's Lemuelu. I think if he gets the minutes, he can be phenomenal. He's also dual positions. You can play him at center as well. So, for around 280k, that if he gets a starting role, which, with guys like Felice Kafusi and Kenny Bromwich getting on, then he could really blow up for you.
Amazing. Well, look, they're the cash cows. So look, nearly 2 hours live talking fantasy. We're going to make some shorter videos on the channel as well. But that was really fun, guys. Look, let us know in the comments here as well if you're watching this later too, what you want to see from us, any key questions, any topics you want us to cover, or anything like that, and we'll make sure to cover it. But we'll see you next week. All right. Bye, everyone.
Peace. See ya.
Cheers.